what's your take on AI reaching its own escape velocity and becoming self-aware and self-improving? Extending beyond the controllable black box.
Yeah. So I think I don't have any question that it will happen. Our brains are neural nets, right? Our brains, and we are understanding more and more and more, and we're building chipsets that look and feel like the neural nets of a brain. And we're seeing all the progress. This last 5 years has been this massive increase in AI. And that's a result of more computation and more data. And we've got companies like OpenAI that's produced GPT-3 and now GPT-4 and DeepMind, which is part of Alphabet. And they're moving at a prodigious rate. Ray Kurzweil's prediction, to go back to his predictions, are that we'll see human-level AI by 2029. And he's still sticking with it. And that means the next year it'll be superhuman. So the question is, what do you do at that point? And one of the ideas that I'm enamored with and Elon is funding is we're going to merge humanity with it. And this is the whole realm of brain-computer interface that we're going to, our brains have 100 billion neurons, 100 trillion synaptic connections that shape everything you hear. But our brains are limited in their capacity. You can't grow the brain any bigger, otherwise you couldn't get through the birth canal. And in fact, what our brain ended up doing to increase the neocortex, the upper layer, is it started creating these folds that you see to increase the surface area. So when we use our phones and we want to do a complicated, image analysis or voice analysis, that computation doesn't happen on the phone. The phone gathers the data from the camera, the speakers, and so forth, and it sends the data to the edge of the cloud on a 4G or 5G network. And the processing gets done there, and then the answer comes back to your phone. So what does that look like? For a human brain, imagine if you could think, like ask the question, what's the GDP of Ghana, right? And have the data from that question transmitted to the cloud and Google by thinking and get the answer back. So that technology we're there. It's the next few years. There's Neuralink, which is Elon's company. I'm an advisor in a company called Paradromics and an investor and advisor in another company called Open Water. All of these are brain-computer interface companies. And Ray's prediction, again, because there are a few things that he's put out there, is that by the early to mid-2030s, we're going to have high bandwidth brain-computer interface. Again, can't slow it down.
Right.
What do you do with it?
And where's the wisdom-based star chamber for all of this?
Yeah.
Like, that's my concern.
I
right?
get it. I understand.
It is, I mean, it's fascinating to think about. It's certainly, maturing to the point of becoming, a conceptual reality. And it makes you wonder whether or not humanity exists like on this evolutionary path to give birth to this greater life form. In the sort of chrysalis of caterpillar to butterfly.
Yeah,
what does that mean for humanity, right? And where does humanity's hubris sit in all of this, in thinking that this is beneficial at best and at worst innocuous?
Do you want to go there? My last chapter of my last book was on that topic.
I know. And again, ever the optimist.
Yeah. So I think that this notion of brain-computer interface is going to be the transition point for our metamorphosis, our transformation. If you look back at the history of life on this planet, our planet was formed 4.5 billion years ago. About 500 million years after that, the earliest life forms on this planet came into existence. They're called prokaryotic cells. They were very simple bags of cytoplasm with free-floating DNA in them. About 500 million to 1 billion years after that, give or take, those single-cell prokaryotic life forms evolved into eukaryotic life forms. And
all seeded, of course, by aliens.
No,
but go
I'm
ahead.
not going to go there.
No, I know.
But these eukaryotic life forms effectively were these early life forms with incorporated technology into them. So the eukaryotic life forms had ingested what we call now mitochondria, which were energy plants. They were other bacteria that had able to do oxidative energy production, and so they ingested that as a power plant inside of the cell. Then endoplasmic reticulum for creating proteins and Golgi apparatus, and more importantly, a nuclear membrane and chromosomal structures. And so we went from a simple life form to a more complicated single cell life form with technology as part of it.
Mm-hmm.
The next phase, a billion years later, was to go from single cell to multicellular life forms, where these cells would come together collaboratively and work together, eventually forming you and me. We have 40 trillion cells in our body, give or take. We're not a single life form. We're a collaboration of 40 trillion cells. And so when I think about that, I think about the analogies today that we as humans are the prokaryotic life, the very simple individual. And we're in the midst of incorporating technology into ourselves, right? Like going from prokaryotic to eukaryotic life, where, these mobile phones are part of us. It's my memory bank is here and such. And as we start to connect, and if, Rich, I have a BCI connection and you do as well, and I can share thoughts with you, right? It's a level of connection and intimacy, like I can watch the sun rising in Tokyo through the eyes of somebody. There's a level of connectedness that I think is extraordinary. And just like you wouldn't take a knife and stab your arm because it's you, imagine a world in which we're so connected that I want you to succeed as much as you possibly can because your success is my success, right? That level of a transformation. So I call that a meta-intelligence level. Again, this is best done with a glass of wine or a scotch.
Mm-hmm.
But I mean, there's some interesting directions ahead.
Yeah, I mean, I hope it would move in that direction. I mean, I my sense is that the early days of the internet, there was a similar conversation around how connectivity would breed empathy and bring us closer together. But, I don't have to tell you, all you got to do is scroll on Twitter and realize that, that sort of semi-utopian notion has not really been delivered upon.
But it has delivered on a multitude of other benefits, right?
Yeah, I would,
education.
Of course, I would concede that. Yeah.
I mean,
and I want to talk, and let's talk about education, because I think you have some really interesting thoughts around that. And that's an area where, I think most people agree we're in dire need of a reimagination. And we now have at our behest these incredibly powerful technological tools that I think really have so many beneficial applications.
There are two industries I want to help topple: healthcare and education. Both of them are just in extremis. Both of them are doing us a disservice, and both can be reinvented. AI is going to be at the core of both. When you think about that, Google, for the wealthiest child on the planet and the poorest child on the planet, is identical, right? Larry Page's son has access to the same Google that my son has.
If they have, if everybody has a tablet, then they can tap into what's available.
Yes, and the cost of tablets have dropped below $40 in using Android devices and such. So it is, and there will be a point at which I can imagine Amazon or Facebook giving every kid a tablet to have access to eventual buying power from that child. So we're getting to global bandwidth connectivity, and devices are eventually demonetizing to zero.
The overall structure of education being what it is right now, which is really a legacy of the outset of the Industrial Revolution, yes. And we really have not iterated upon that in any meaningful way since.
Agreed. What I was saying was Google is the same. It's complete democratization and demonetization. And I think we're going to reach a point, I'm sure we're going to reach a point where the best healthcare is going to be AI enabled, which will be accessible to the poorest and the wealthiest. And it will be the same education will be AI enabled, where an AI knows your child's favorite sports star, movie star. Are they a auditory learner or a visual learner? And be able to create a personalized level of education for that individual. Now, we're going to need to differentiate between cognitive learning and social learning, right? But where we're going with Web3 and the ability for AI to deliver, I mean, I have two 10-and-a-half-year-old boys, and they love Roblox, right? It's like their religion. Mm-hmm. And they would play Roblox almost all the time if given permission. And it's sad that education isn't like that. Why don't we have educational games, right? And when you're in school, you start with a score of 100%, and every time you get something wrong, your score goes down. In the gaming world, you start with 0, and every time you get something right, your score goes up. Mm-hmm. Why doesn't that exist? Why can't we connect to the game mechanics of the human brain to do that? And I think we can.
Well, it's also architectured around rote memorization of facts and testing.
Yes,
which is ludicrous.
Yes, I mean it's as you said, it's all supporting the creation of workers from the Industrial Revolution. And that's what we needed. We needed people who followed instructions. The bell would ring in the classroom. You know, you're on your production line. You go mm-hmm. to the next place to stuff your brain with something. And I think we need to reinvent. I mean, for me, it's reinventing education around passion-driven. It's like, what is your passion and your purpose? I love the Mark Twain quote. There are 2 important days in your life: the day that you're born and the day that you find out why. Right? So helping kids first find out why, and then how to structure an argument, how to provide a compelling point of view, and how to lead, how to have grit, right? I mean,
perseverance, grit,
curiosity, fundamental, asking great questions.
All of these things, I think, like, you look at a young person, and when they're self-directed, enthusiastic, curious, and already have a sense of, what lights them up, like, that kid's going to be fine.
Yes, exactly.
But not all kids are wired that way, or are not in environments or circumstances that lend themselves towards the development of those soft skills, right? 1,000%. I mean, you're somebody who at a very early age, you had this complete obsession with space.
I was lucky. Apollo.
But that is on some level, that is luck, right?
It is luck.
Not everybody gets struck with something that they can carry through their entire life.
Yes. Yeah, no, I agree with you. It was luck. It was Apollo showed me what was possible, and then, as I like to say, that scientific documentary Star Trek showed me where things were going.
You and me both. I love that.
Yeah. and it
I went to Star Trek conventions when I was a kid.
I love it. So how do you help kids experience enough to find their true passion that becomes a purpose, and then they learn to fulfill those desires?
Mm-hmm. So in the case of your own kids and being a dad, a parent, I mean, are your kids in traditional school? Are they homeschooled? Like, how are you injecting, their lives with all of these ideas that you're passionate about?
Yeah, so they're in a traditional private school, and it was interesting. We only found one school that we liked, and I was like, okay, if they don't get in, because it's twin white Caucasian boys, and the probability of getting in was relatively low. It was like, I'm going to start a school if I can't get them in. Mm-hmm. And they did get in, and I still am thinking about starting a school.
Doesn't Elon does he still have that Ad Astra school?
I went to go, I went to go and visit his school, and it was a sort of like a 3rd through 8th grade. And then when his kids ended up graduating, he stopped it. It was on the campus of SpaceX, and it was fantastic. And I love what they were doing. So, for example, one of the things that the head of the school, who was a brilliant guy, did is he created these interesting experiments. He said, "Okay, here's a town, and it's on the edge of a lake, and the town has a factory and all of the employees are either employed by the factory or they're fishermen in the lake, and the fish feed the town. And we're going to create representation in our school of the fisheries, the factory, the government, and the public. And all of a sudden, one day, it's found out that the factory is polluting and killing the fish in the lake. Play different roles and play it out, right? So it's that kind of thinking, that kind of debate and discussion, critical thinking, that I think is so important.
Yeah. My sense is, and this is just my own N of one experience, is that at least in Los Angeles, there's plenty of kind of interesting experiments in education for kids at the earlier stages, like in the younger grades. But at some point, these things all kind of fall apart once the kids are 12, 14, 15-year-old. And there aren't any schools that carry it through the conclusion of high school. And maybe that's because parents get scared, or they want to make sure, well, everyone else is doing it this way, like this is too radical, and they freak out. While at the same time, we are seeing an explosion in homeschooling.
Yep. I agreed. And COVID reason, definitely was an interesting situation.
Well, I mean, everybody on Zoom is a disaster.
Total disaster, right? One of the big questions then is college going to be a thing in a decade? I think I grew up a lot in college socially, right? Had my sufficient amount of being picked on and such, and I learned how to defend myself mentally, and got onto my own when you're outside. And so that's really important, that those years of 18 to 24, thereabouts. But I think beyond that, the freedom to go and learn, but I don't use anything I learned in college. Do you?
Right. No. Yeah, no. I mean, we grew up in a time where if you wanted to be successful in the world, you had to go to college and possibly grad school. I don't think that is the case today. Certainly, for the reasons you stated, I think it's a wonderful experience to have, but it's not necessarily for everybody now, and nor should it be.
I think ultimately, college is a shorthand. Oh, that person went to Princeton, or that person went to Stanford. They're smart.
It's a social validation stamp.
Yeah, but there are other ways. I mean, some of the stuff that Peter Thiel was doing, like I'll pay you to drop out of college. I remember Elon having a hackathon and tweeting out that I don't care if you graduated high school or not. If you're a great, programmer, I'll hire you. And I think that's going to be an interesting direction of, can you find your passion, and then can you partner with the technology that helps you develop your passion, right? And then do what you love to do. Because a lot of people get a job not because it's their passion, it's because that's how they get food on the table, or get their clothing for their family.
Yeah, I mean, passion is an indulgence for most people. Yeah. But with respect to your own kids, like, how are you, outside of the formal schooling construct, trying to help them, discover their passion, cultivate curiosity, develop grit and perseverance, and all of these qualities?
Say publicly, and I've written, a few blogs on the subject, that there are 3 things I want for them that are, it's not about AI, robotics, or any of those things. I want them to find their passion. I want them to learn to ask great questions, and I want them to develop grit, perseverance. I think those are the 3 most, and then to be great friends, since they're fraternal twins. And passion is a matter of just exposing them to as much stuff as possible. And, I had kids when I was 50. And so I'm lucky in that I can, nope, not going there to work today. I'm going to go and do this. It's not possible for everybody. But I have an unlimited budget for books for the kids. It's like, whatever book you want to buy, 100%, just ask me, Amazon will deliver it tomorrow. Asking great questions has become sort of a joke, because every day I would drop them off at school, I would say, ask great questions today. What questions did you ask today? And it became sort of an annoyance. And then perseverance and grit, we've sort of created a family motto that the kids have developed, that we don't give up.
Right. And with the advent of AI and machine learning and all of that, obviously we're ushering in this era of automation where so many jobs are going to become obsolete. Like, how do you think about their future, and where you would direct your kids to, not be, a victim of this new world order that is soon to be?
It's a fascinating question. So one realization is technology is constantly changing, but a lot of the problems are not. And so can you become an expert in a problem and really understand it and then be in a position to apply whatever the technology du jour is to that problem? I think there's some real truth in that element. Folks who have kids in high school today or college, biotech and AI are the two fields that for the time being are going to be employing people, and it's like, get that degree and you've got a job instantly. And then ultimately, we are demonetizing living. And the question is, are we going to separate working for income and working for fun? Right. So there's in the Web3 world, there's a platform called Axie Infinity. I don't know if you've ever heard of it. So it's a game that's called a play to earn. So people who play the game are making money. And in parts of Asia and Vietnam, Thailand, and so forth, people are earning their living playing this game, Axie Infinity. And I'm not going to say I understand it or I fully believe it. You have to buy into it. And then as you're playing the game, you're developing your characters and you're selling them to other people who want to enter the game and so forth. So there's, whether it's a Ponzi scheme or not, but there is the tokenization of our world is going to change how and where we earn our living.
It's so strange. I mean, that's a larger conversation about the hearkening of the metaverse. And when I look at what's happening with the tokenization and the NFT world, like this is just an initial baby step into, this economy that will exist in the virtual space and our relationship, between our real lives and the lives that will transpire there. And like, maybe I'm just too old, but like, you're again the optimist here, and I've tried so hard to learn about aspects of that, and I really struggle.
Yeah. Oh, and I think it's the only way to learn is by doing and playing and experiencing. And so I'm trying to do that as much as I can, and it is fascinating. I can see enough promise over the horizon. I'm in Bitcoin and Ethereum. I've not bought a single NFT. I'm still not a believer, even though my friends have made, millions of dollars in the world. It's like, no, just not there. I believe NFTs are going to be important for a number of business reasons, just not there on the Bored Apes yet. But the Web3, where Web2 was a web of information exchange, and Web3 is going to be a value exchange where I can be transmitting money to you or transmitting ownership of things to you instantly, is massive.
Yeah.
It's 100 times, maybe 1,000-fold more massive than the current web is today.
Well, the idea of smart contracts and just the ease with which we're going to be able to kind of conduct business and create incentives, et cetera, all the way down the line with that, I think is really interesting.
Yeah. It's an amazing time. And then you start to realize the kinds of things you can monetize. So a few companies I know about, if you sequence your genome and if you give them access to your genome to be used in different product developments and so forth, you can earn money from it and such. If that company, if your genome is used for creating a discovery and so forth.
My head's going to explode.
Yeah. I mean, honestly, it's the only constant is change, and the speed of change is increasing. Now, I am the optimist, and I feel like optimism is warranted over and over and over again over the last 50 years.
Yeah.
And our tools, I define an entrepreneur as someone who finds a juicy problem and fixes it, right? That's what, real entrepreneurs are doing well. And I also believe that the world's biggest problems are the world's biggest business opportunities, right? And what I teach at Singularity University and Abundance 360 is, when I become a billionaire, help a billion people, right? There's those kinds of mantras and mindsets that are like where can I go solve this problem? What problem can I go solve there?
Yeah, on the mindset piece, I think that's really important. And maybe this is the last thing that we can cover here. When I look at the breadth of your work, you're somebody who has never been afraid to tackle big problems and really set, what most would assume to be just, outlandish, audacious goals. So it's that relationship. There's a certain kind of like relationship to reality that you have and possibility. Like why advocate for incremental change when you can say we're going to do X, Y, or Z that nobody had ever thought of? So talk to me a little bit about
happily
your thinking around that.
So I think mindset is the single most important thing that anyone can take out of this conversation today, in addition to health. I got religion on mindset over the course of the last decade, and I've made it the focus. So I mentor thousands of entrepreneurs through an Abundance Digital, and I run a CEO executive program year-round called Abundance 360, which is part of Singularity University. And I've focused the entire program around mindset. And there are 4 mindsets that I focus on: an abundance mindset, an exponential mindset, a moonshot mindset, and a longevity mindset. There's gratitude mindsets and curiosity mindsets. We'll come back to the primaries. If I were to ask you what made Steve Jobs, Jeff Bezos, Elon Musk, Mahatma Gandhi, whoever it might be, successful, was it the money they had? Was it the relationships they had? Was it the tech they had? Or was it their mindset? I would posit that mindset is the most important out of those things. If you took away everything from them, but they maintained their mindset, they would regain some portion of it. And so if that's true, if mindset is that important, then where are we proactively developing and honing our mindsets? Because most of us, including me until this last decade, have been getting our mindsets from our parents or schools, God forbid, the stuff we watch on TV. And instead of like proactively honing it. And so if you don't mind, let me hit on those 4 mindsets.
Absolutely.
So abundance mindset is something I got that out of Singularity University, and it got me to write my first book, Abundance, The Future is Better Than You Think. And it was the realization that, oh my God, we are moving from scarcity, which is we're genetically dialed into scarcity. We have in our brains, in our genome, we have a scarcity mindset because it was where we evolved. But technology is a force that turns whatever used to be scarce into abundance over and over and over again. Case in point, we used to go and kill whales to get whale oil to light our nights, right? Then we ravaged mountainsides for coal. Then we drilled kilometers in the ocean floor. And now photovoltaics, we talked about fusion. There's a squanderable abundance of energy coming. So tech moved it from scarcity to abundance. We have more capital year on year on year than any time ever. So we're going to hit $100 trillion in our global economy this year. We've hit the most number of unicorns ever. The amount of venture capital invested in 2017 beat 2016, and 2018 beat 2017. Even in on and on and on, even through the pandemic, this 2021, we doubled the amount of venture capital done in 2020, which doubled 2019. Okay, let's go on. This past year, what would you think of as more scarce than a perfect diamond, a 4-carat, 5-carat, 10-carat diamond, right? Pandora, the largest jeweler on the planet, this past year said we're going to stop selling conflict diamonds or mine diamonds that have social issues, and we're only going to produce manufactured diamonds. And so all of a sudden, diamonds went from being scarce to perfect diamonds, 8, 10, 20-carat diamonds becoming abundant. It's the cost of electricity, methane, and water. And a friend of mine at a company called the Diamond Foundry manufactures whatever gem you want. Do you want flaws, imperfections? You can do that. And so this is an abundance mindset, which I'll cap that one off in the following way. If you got a pie, and all of a sudden twice as many people show up for dinner, in a scarcity mindset, you're like, damn, I got to slice the slice is thinner and thinner and thinner. In an abundance mindset, no, it's bullshit. We're going to bake more pies, right? That's an abundance mindset. Every year it's giving us more and more opportunities, which has been fundamentally the case. Your competition, forget about them. There's more opportunities. let's go and go in that direction. An exponential mindset is just the notion that we're linear thinkers. Take 30 linear steps, you're 30 meters away. But our tech world is growing exponentially, 30 doublings, 1, 2, 4, 8, 16, 32. And 30 doublings, you're a billion meters away. You've gone around the planet 26 times. And so in an exponential mindset, it's important to be able to see where the technologies are going and how they're converging. And so at A360, that I work people through the abundance mindset, give the examples of increasing abundance across almost every single area, exponential mindsets and what the implications are. A moonshot mindset is the notion that most of the world would love 10%, would really love a 10% improvement in revenues, 10% more customers. And that's a great stretch goal. In a moonshot mindset, you're saying, no. I don't want 10%. I want to go 10 times bigger, 1,000% bigger. And when you do that, you've got to let go of all your preconceived notions. The astroteller, who's the captain of moonshots at Alphabet, a brilliant guy, a friend who I care about greatly, gives an example. It says, if you're a car company and your car is doing 50 miles per gallon and you want to get to 55, you can do that. You can lightweight the car, get better aerodynamics. But if you want to go from 50 to 500, you've got to start with a clean sheet of paper and reinvent the car. And so the ability to take these moonshots are here because of these exponential technologies. And when I'm teaching the CEOs that I coach, it's like you want to keep 95% of your company doing 10%. They're generating the engine, right, that keeps you alive. And you don't want them taking moonshots. But you want to find that small team, that moonshot team, and take them away from the main company. And you want to say to them, listen, I don't want you taking 10%. If I see you doing 10% activities, you're fired. I want you trying crazy ideas that have the potential to reinvent our business, right? The day before something is really a breakthrough, it's a crazy idea. And most companies aren't trying crazy ideas, and then they're stuck in incrementalism.
Yeah, the idea of creating a skunk works within each company, because every company, when it reaches a certain scale, falls prey to its own bureaucracy and soon becomes a dinosaur short of having that level of innovation within, which requires a certain
very few
boldness.
100-year-old companies. Yeah. The final mindset that I'm enamored with, and it's what gave birth to this book, Life Force, to bring it back, is the longevity mindset. And, if you can will yourself to death and you can will yourself to live longer, if you have something to live for, and if you believe you have the ability to live out of pain and have the cognition, the aesthetics, the mobility. And so a longevity mindset for me is helping people see where this field is going. One of the things I did, Rich, was I built over the last year an AI engine that searches the global news, journals, tweets, magazines, newspapers, and it finds longevity and health tech breakthroughs. And it scans it for any dystopian, and it rates it on a quality article. And I get a digest every day. It uses GPT-3, uses the OpenAI's AI engine to give me a summary paragraph about 15 different breakthroughs per day. And so it's my longevity mindset. I'm seeing what's going on in all of these different fields, and I have zero question about reaching longevity escape velocity. And you can try it, as can everyone else. It's free. It's longevityinsider.org. And at the end of the day, I get this news that gives me tremendous hope. And because of that, I'm willing to change my diet, sleep longer, do intermittent fasting.
Right. It's almost, we're the last generation, right, who are like butting right up against the edge of whether we're going to make it across the transom or not.
Yeah.
Right. Yeah. Which is interesting. Well, it was a pleasure talking to you.
A lot of fun
great,
conversations.
Man. Yeah,
Thank you,
I really
Rich.
appreciate it. I hope that the utopian version of all the things that you are speaking about comes to fruition. And if Skynet should befall us, I'm going to call you up.
All right, I'll be watching for it.
Yeah. And I'd love to have you back whenever you want to talk about space and all these other things that you're into, because it's super fascinating. But I appreciate you coming here today. The book is Life Force, available wherever you buy books. A great primer to read in conjunction with David Sinclair's fantastic book,
yes, absolutely.
Lifespan, and there's a lot of stuff in there that'll blow your mind. So thank you.
Thank you, Rich. Cool. Appreciate you.
Peace. Lights.